morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio. So today, I want to tell you about 2 new supporter cards, which are going to be coming along, and they're both new draw cards, and I do feel like we should pop both of them in one video, because, well, they're both kind of similar new draw cards, and they're both kind of niche, but they're both kind of cool. Although one of them is clearly cooler than the other, it's Beauty. Beauty is, now fun little trivia fact from the lovely Antoine Boulet here, who of course does provide our translations. This trainer is actually known as Grown Up Lady in Japan, but has been localized to Beauty. Also, I'm really waiting for a B supporter, and the first 3 letters are the same. And yet I don't have B, and we do have Beauty, and I'm a little bit upset about that. Boo, hiss, etc. But what does it do? Well, according to the lovely Antoine Boulet, what we have here is a supporter card that lets you draw 2 cards. That's bad. But you can play this card on your first turn, going first. Oh, well, that's a lot better. Remember, we have a rule at the moment whereby if you go first on your first turn of the game, you are not allowed to play supporter cards or attack. Which means turn 1 going first, you're limited to item cards, and you're limited to abilities, which is where things like Dedenne and Crobat come in so beautifully. Well, here, ladies and gentlemen, we have a supporter card that you can play on your first turn going first. That is a wonderful thing. But make no mistake about it, the supporter card is bad. It's a very bad card. And I can tell you it's bad because Hal was a bad card and Hop is a bad card, and they draw you 50% more cards. They each draw you 3 cards. This draws you 2 cards. And sure, right, turn 1 going first, drawing an extra 2 cards is great. One of the issues we have in the format at the moment, and let's be clear, I very much like the format at the moment, I'm enjoying playing it, but one of the issues that we do have is that because the player going first can only really use items and abilities, and stadiums I suppose, it means that there are many games where you go first, you only have 1 Pokemon, you can't find another without using attacks or supporters, and then it's your opponent's turn, they have no restrictions, they KO your only Pokemon, you lose! When I was going for the Professor Cup, there was 7 out of something like 25 events where I lost my first round match. 3 of them I got donked. 3 of my 7 round 1 losses were go first, no second Pokemon, pass to my opponent, lose. Being able to play a Beauty to draw an extra 2 cards could have been the difference between winning and losing those games. I mean, I lost to a Cinderace at one point, a very positive matchup for my deck, because I went first, they won the flip and made me go first. I only had 1 basic Pokemon, and they used a Welder to do 140 turn 1. That was, in a very literal sense of the word, an unwinnable game. Maybe drawing 2 cards with Beauty would have helped. But here's the thing. Am I ever going to play this? Because the problem we find, here's the issue, right? You want to play 4 of this card in order to maximize the chances of drawing it turn 1. You have somewhere in the region of a roughly 50% chance of having it turn 1 if you play a playset. But then you run into the issue of, you're playing 4 of them? It's a bad supporter card. So after turn 1, you don't want it anymore. And bearing in mind, if you go second, you never really want this card. Now, we've seen this before. The classic example of this is probably Wait and See Hammer. Wait and See Hammer is an item card that lets you discard an energy automatically from one of your opponent's Pokemon, but only on your first turn of the game if you go second. Well, we fixed that by playing Green's Exploration. Green's Exploration lets you search for any 2 trainer cards. So what you do is you play a single copy of Wait and See Hammer, and if you go second, you search it out with Green's Exploration. Maybe you can play 4 copies of Pokegear 3.0, and you playing one copy of Beauty or Grown Up Lady, and maybe if you go first you can find it. But half of the games you never want to find it, the other half you only want to find it turn 1, and it is a bad supporter, it's just one that you can play turn 1 going first, and I honestly don't think that's enough to save it. I'm giving it 2 Wassies, I'm sorry. If there was a way to reliably find it turn 1 going first, so I could play it as a one-of, no, something like Tapu Lele would not count, that is a waste of that ability, then maybe I would love it. As it stands, it's a bill, but you can play it turn 1 going first, and they literally stopped printing bill because the card was too bad. But the good news is we have another supporter we can take a bit of a look at, and maybe this one's going to be a little bit better. It is Gym Trainer. It is another supporter card, and according to the lovely Antoine Boulet, you draw 2 cards, but if any of your Pokemon were KO'd during your opponent's last turn, you draw 2 more cards. So it is a draw 4, but you only get to draw 4 if any of your Pokemon were KO'd during your opponent's last turn. Now the good news is it's not KO'd from damage, it's not KO'd from attacks or any of that. So no matter how they were KO'd, even if they were KO'd by damage dropped from your opponent's Galarian Zigzagoon, for instance, you will still be able to use this to draw extra cards. And you know what? Drawing 4 cards is just not something we see without a downside. There are plenty of cards out there that let you draw 4 cards, but there's always some kind of downside. So Lily's Full Force, for instance, lets you draw 4 cards, but the downside here is at the end of your turn, if you got 3 or more cards in hand, you got to shuffle cards in your hand into your deck until you've only got 2. So you've got to end the turn with 2 cards in hand. Evelyn lets you draw 4 cards, but only if your opponent's active Pokemon is a Stage 1. Sophocles let you draw 4 cards, but only if you discarded 2 cards from your hand. So that wasn't ideal. And then there's a whole bunch of cards that let you draw 2, like this, but let you draw 2 more under certain circumstances. Dan lets you draw 2 cards, and then lets you draw another 2, but only if you win a game of rock, paper, scissors against your opponent. Otherwise, you just stick on drawing 2, which isn't terribly ideal. Roller Skater, discard a card from your hand, draw 2 cards, but if you discarded an energy, you draw 2 more. Incidentally, a lot of the time I would prefer Roller Skater, but only if I've got an energy to discard. I mean, the one of these that probably sees the most play is Coach Trainer. Coach Trainer lets you draw 2 cards, but if your active Pokemon is a tag team Pokemon, then you get to draw an extra 2 cards. And the reason we like this so much is because if you're playing a real tag team heavy deck, you will pretty much always just have this. I mean, Bug Catcher, draw 2 cards, flip a coin. If heads, draw 2 more cards. I mean, are any of these sounding particularly good other than Coach Trainer and maybe Roller Skater? These kind of cards tend not to be good. I mean, as a fun little side note here, this is similar to Samson Oak. Draw 2 cards, if both active are the same type, draw 2 more cards. And Samson Oak was a participation prize at tournaments last year or the year before. And this is a participation prize in tournaments this year. And is obviously a very similar kind of thing. And here's my biggest issue with this card. Rosa. You see, if I had a Pokemon KO'd the previous turn, I could play this, or I could play Rosa. And Rosa lets me search for a Pokemon and a basic energy and a trainer card. And maybe there are things that I'm not going to get with that I might get drawing 4 cards. But if I'm going for the if you had a Pokemon KO during your opponent's previous turn, I'm definitely going Rosa over this. I just think it's better. We do need more draw supporters post-rotation. Because we're losing Lily and we're losing Cynthia and we're not going to have as many options as we used to have. But even in that context, I don't really like this. I don't think it's a great card. Now, that's not to say it's not going to see any play. This is not a terrible card. It still lets you draw 4 cards. And I've shown you there are a bunch of cards that let you do that, and some of them have seen play. But the ones that have seen play, I do think are better than this. I'll give it 3 Wassies because it's still drawing 4 cards. And I do foresee situations where people are going to want to play this. And if you've got a deck where you're getting regularly KO'd, then regularly drawing 4 cards is a nice little effect. And like I've said, Pokemon only let you draw 4 cards if you give something up or if you achieve something. But I do feel like at the end of the day, it's just going to be outclassed by other cards. And certainly before next rotation, rotation 2021, I don't really see a situation where I'm playing this over Rosa. Sorry. But I'd like to know if you like either of these cards more than I do. So let me know in the comment section. Go nuts. Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at The Wassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.